Hello there everybody, welcome to this week's edition of The Verdict, where we'll concentrate principally on Irish Champions Weekend, Saturday at Leopardstown, Sunday at the Curragh. I'll also have a look back at a brilliant ride from Tom Marquand at Epsom earlier in the week. We saw contrasting styles of racing over the weekend. Leopardstown is a very tricky track to ride, a tactical conundrum for jockeys, whereas the wide open expanses of the Curragh make it an awful lot easier. Let's go to Leopardstown first of all then, and to the Irish Champions Stakes, the feature race of the whole weekend. Just 4 horses turned up, first time in 11 years that there was no runner from overseas, and the smallest field for a while. But chock full of quality, the 4 of them had won 9 Group 1 races between them. Mile and a quarter the trip, St Mark's Basilica the favourite, 6-5 on, 9-4 Tarnawa, Poetic Flare up in trip, 4-1, and Patrick Sarsfield 33-1. Okay, let's have a look at how this race panned out, and it was a controversial one, there is no doubt about that. St Mark's Basilica backing up his win in the Eclipse to go and land this, but it was not a race without controversy. So Patrick Sarsfield took them along in the early stages. Poetic Flare in second place, you can see him just reefing and pulling a little bit in here. Here he is, look at there. Kevin Manning got a tight hold of the reins, he's up in trip. Don't think that's why he's necessarily pulling though. I think it's because they're going a very steady gallop. This was an absolute crawl, and for a Group 1 race it turned into a relative sprint. A dash up the home straight is what this race was. It's not produced a very good time figure, and it's produced a slow final time. 2 minutes 11.19 over 10 furlongs. You'd expect something around 2 minutes 5, 2 minutes 6. That's where Magical was when she won this race 2 years on the bounce, around about the 2 minutes 5 mark, and that was on very similar ground, officially described as good. So you can see how slow that overall time is, at 2:11.19. Nothing much happened early doors in this race. Patrick Sarsfield taking them along. Poetic Flare very well placed. Then St Mark's Basilica tucked in by Ryan Moore. Ryan probably not worried about a tactical affair, for he met one in the Eclipse at Sandown. That was steadily run as well, and St Mark's Basilica was able to overcome that with his lightning turn of foot at Sandown. The course track section showed that he's a very fast horse, and he proved here that he can quicken very, very strongly in the closing stages of a race. Now they're beginning to wind it up as they get towards the 3-pole, and this is where things get quite tricky. St Mark's Basilica coming to challenge Poetic Flare. Tarnawa tucked in behind, anxious to track St Mark's Basilica. That was Colin Keane's decision, I think. Now Ryan says go. St Mark's doesn't pick up instantly, but when he really gets into him, then he sprints. Now he's sprinting, but he's drifting to his right. Or is he? Has Ryan taken him across a little bit? And then the horse just continued to go that way. After all, Ryan's got his whip in his right hand. What that has done is it's taken Tarnawa with him. 3/4 of a length between them at the line. Let's just stop it there. Look at the strips of grass. He's in lane 2 at the moment, St Mark's Basilica, and about to edge across to his right. Let's count the lanes. He's going to go into 1 lane there, the lighter strip. So he's crossed 1 lane. Now he's crossed 2, taking Tarnawa with him. Now he's crossed 3. How much further is he going to go? Well, he's going to go further yet. Now he's crossed 4. He hasn't quite bumped Tarnawa. Now he's gone 5. Now he's gone 6 lanes over. And he's still drifting 7 lanes over. He's pushed Tarnawa into lane 8. And he just about gets into lane 8 in the closing stages. The scout angle will show what the stewards had to look at. And they had to decide whether Tarnawa would have won but for the interference that occurred. And I suspect this was a very trappy decision, a close run thing. You could argue, the reasonable man on the Clapham omnibus could argue that Tarnawa would have won but for the interference. But others would say, well, no, I think St Mark's Basilica was probably best on the day. It was a very tough decision for the stewards to make, and I suspect that the winning margin played a big part in allowing St Mark's Basilica to keep the race, for it was 3/4 of a length. I think he might have been in trouble if it had been a head or a short head. So he keeps the race. He wins the Champion Stakes for Aidan O'Brien. And how do we sum up what we saw there on Saturday? Well, it was a controversial affair, wasn't it? And that's because it was a slowly run race that turned into a sprint, with St Mark's Basilica going halfway across the track and taking Tarnawa with it. What else have we got? Well, we've got a very slow time. Final time is slow, 2:11.19. On similar ground to Magical in 2020, 2 minutes 5.08 for Magical. That really puts this time in context. Well, what of Tarnawa? Colin Keane, if he had his time again, would he have gone to the left? As St Mark's Basilica started to drift, would he have gone to his left? And if he had, would he have won? Well, he might have done. It certainly would have been very close, and that's something he'll be mulling over. I think he felt he should have got it in the stewards' room. The stewards felt otherwise. I think it really was a tough decision. I don't think this was straightforward at all. I think people will be split on this decision. I think the 3/4 of a length was absolutely crucial in the end into St Mark's keeping it. What's going to happen to the winner then, St Mark's Basilica? Well, there are noises that they are very much looking to have him in the breeding sheds next season as a replacement for Galileo. And with that in mind, will they be prepared to risk him again on the track? Maybe not. We might have seen the last of St Mark's Basilica, but what marks him out is that he's got the attributes of a Galileo, and he puts his head down and he tries, and he'll run through a brick wall for you, and he's got loads of pace. Make no mistake, although his last 2 Group 1 wins have been in slowly run races, he has got a lightning turn of foot. Well, if you thought that Irish Champions Stakes was controversial, take a look at the Matron and what happened out there at Leopardstown in this Group 1 for fillies and mares. This was really controversial. A mile was the trip. Favourite was Mother Earth, and she stood out on form, really, the Guineas winner. She was 6-5 favourite. Pearls Galore, 7-1. Dream Loper in at 8-1 for Ed Walker, trying to get some black type. Champs Elysee won this last year. She was 9-1 from 12s for Johnny Murtagh. Pretty gorgeous 9s, and it was 10-1 and bigger the rest. And the winner, well, it was a big price. It was No Speak Alexander, who was a 25-1 shot, who wins for Jessica Harrington and Shane Foley. Let's send them on their way in this race, and just note where they come from. No Speak Alexander jumps out of stall number 3. Pearls Galore comes from 7. And the third home, Mother Earth, right next to the winner in stall number 2, right there. And it is Mother Earth who is the one who is inconvenienced by everything that goes on in this race. Now, Leopardstown is a difficult track to ride, because what happens is there's often a lot of trouble down on the inside. You want to avoid that trouble. Generally, you want to go wide. But if you go wide at Leopardstown, you can give away a lot of ground, and that can stop you winning. So the ideal trip is an inside trip all the way down the back, and then as you come round the home bend, you angle out and try and get a run thereafter. And I think that's what Ryan Moore was going to try and do on Mother Earth here. He's jumped from stall 2 and he's got her down towards the inside, travelling nicely right in there, going pretty well at this stage. There's the winner, No Speak Alexander. Ryan would be happy at this stage. He's happy where he is. He's on the inside. He's going the shortest way. He's going to try and angle out when they turn into the home straight. And he's going to get some criticism for this ride. But I put it to you that he had no choice to do what he could do. He couldn't get out. He was kept in all the way round, and he just couldn't get out. In his mind, he knew what he wanted to do, but he was kept in by Pearls Galore, who ran an absolute blinder. But Mother Earth, no luck at all, and definitely should have won this race. The final time was okay, not too bad, 1:41.98. They didn't go mad. It wasn't a crawl, it was just evenly run. Now they're picking up. Now look at Ryan Moore. Here he goes, he's right down on the inside there. He's decided to go for an inside run. He couldn't get here between horses, so he goes inside. But he's going to be kept in on the inside, and he's not going to get out. They're not going to let him out, and principally the man who won't let him out is Shane Foley on No Speak Alexander. He wants to block him in. There's No Speak Alexander surging to the front. There's Pearls Galore and the purple cap, Ryan. He's still stuck in behind horses, but he's never had a chance to get out, to be fair to him. He's never had an out whatsoever. We'll roll him on here, and Shane Foley is going to close that gap there. He's closed him out. Ryan wants to come through here. He wants to sneak up the rail between horses. There's no way Shane Foley's going to let him, and Shane leans to his left. He just angles in a little bit, for which he got a ban, deservedly so. It was aggressive riding from Foley. It was a professional foul from him, but well worth it, you would say, to win a Group 1. Ryan accepts what happens in the closing stages and just makes sure of third place. So here's the gap. Now if you look there, look at there, Foley, look at his shoulder, left shoulder leaning into Ryan, horse's head angled to the left. He's trying to close the gap, not just with the horse, but with his body as well, to completely shut off Ryan and not let him through. Ryan's got half a chance there, but there is no way Foley is for budging, and he keeps him in, and there's nowhere at all for Mother Earth to go. Likewise, make a quick note, Champs-Élysées, down on the inside, absolutely nowhere to go either. This is so typical of Leopardstown. Horses get tired and stop, and horses roll onto the rail when they're tired. Champs-Élysées, no room. Mother Earth, desperately unlucky. Absolutely nowhere to go, and probably should have won. But no Speak Alexander, back in the winner's enclosure, and what was a brilliant day for Jessica Harrington and Shane Foley. It was a very messy race though, wasn't it? It really was, and the stewards deliberated for a good while, but eventually they decided that the result should stand and that No Speak should keep it. So a slowly run race, very, very messy, and lots of trouble in running, particularly for Mother Earth and Champs-Élysées. This is a career best, I hazard to say, I think, for the winner, and part of a treble for Jessica Harrington and Shane Foley. What a weekend they had. We'll come on to more success at the Curragh later in the show. What of Mother Earth? Well, she was very unlucky. I would rate her as the winner, really. She's never got an opportunity to get out. I don't think Ryan Moore is to blame. He had a low draw. He had to take his medicine from that low draw. You can't go wide too early and give away tons of ground. He waited, but he just never got an out whatsoever. He never got any running room. He could never angle out, and he was just unlucky. He was unlucky, Ryan, but Shane Foley really committed a professional foul, if you like, in keeping Ryan pegged in against the rail. It was race riding. It was tough race riding. It was aggressive race riding, for which he picked up a 5-day ban. Leopardstown lends itself to this kind of trouble, as I was telling you about a little bit earlier on. We often see trouble like that. It is a tough track to ride, and sometimes you just do not get an out, and you cannot go wide on that bend and give away tons of ground. So it's a difficult dilemma for jockeys, one that Shane Foley solved with aplomb. So controversial stuff at Leopardstown on Saturday. Much more straightforward at the Curragh on Sunday of day 2 of the Irish Champions Weekend. Massive expanse of turf on the Curragh, and rarely is there trouble in running, but more often than not there is top class racing, and there certainly was on Sunday. We'll start with a Group 1 for the 2-year-old fillies, the Moyglare. Cardedeo was the 85-40 favourite, Homeless Songs 9-4, and Agartha 100-30, Discovery 17-2, 12s. And bigger the rest. Let's have a look at the race then. And it was a win for Jessica Harrington and Shane Foley. It was Discoveries, who beat Agartha, Sunset Shiraz and Concert Hall back in 4th place. Now the first 3 met in the debutante stakes here on soft ground last time up. And it was Agartha who made all to win that race. But here, Discoveries is able to turn the form around. Let's identify them in the run. Discoveries sat second. Agartha is sat there, and Sunset Shiraz just tucked in behind in 3rd place. So it was a race that didn't change much at all. Agartha going on a little bit keen out in front. Maybe she paid for that in the closing stages. I like to think that Discoveries has just improved a little bit from the debutante, and Jessica Harrington intimated as much afterwards. I think she's just found a bit more, because Agatha was quite well supported here, and she ran all the way to the line. The Discoveries just had too much foot in the early stages of this race. This was evenly run. The final time, not too bad at all. We'll be able to compare this with the National Stakes, the Group 1 for the Colts later on. 127.1 for Discoveries, who's just picking up towards the outside now to go and try and get to Agatha, who shows a tremendous attitude. She puts her head down and she finds loads for pressure against the rail. But Discovery's just too good. I think Discovery's in better form than she was in the debutante, and she's turned the form around here. Maybe it was better to be just off the rail. That's a possibility. But, you can't say that Agatha didn't find plenty. There's a bit of trouble there. The winner just drifts into the runner-up and gives her a little bit of a bump. The stewards didn't have a look at that, but it was definitely a bump in the closing stages, as Shane Foley, whipping his left hand, drove Discoveries out to success. And she's just drifted off a true line late on. But the stewards were not too worried about it, and the result stood. It was an evenly run race. That final time was not too bad. Just to give you a heads up, it's not as good as the National Stakes that we're going to have a look at shortly, but it was still a pretty good time. The first two were always prominent, and nothing at all really got involved from off the pace. Sunset Shiraz ran all right in third. Concert Hall was out the back early on and ran on into fourth place. We got nowhere near the front two, who were always 1-2. What a weekend for the Jessica Harrington team. Shane Foley, 3 winners on Saturday at Leopardstown, and now another one here at the Curragh. 4 winners by anyone's standards over the Irish Champions Weekend is sensational. Debutante form, well, Agatha won the debutante and beat Discoveries. The form has been upheld with the Discoveries making improvement, I think. I don't think Agatha ran below form. I think Discoveries has just taken a step forward. What about the runner-up in the future? I think she's a sharp, quick filly. She might be suited by going round a bend. Now, she's won here at the Curragh on a straight track, but round a bend, that might suit her. And I wonder whether the Breeders' Cup at Del Mar is a possibility for her for the juvenile turf race over there. She'd have a chance in that because she's fast and she's pretty tough as well. And that would be an interesting option for her. But Discoveries makes it a wonderful weekend for the Harrington team. Well, the Group 1 National Stakes at the Curragh is a race that in recent years has been very good to Charlie Appleby and William Buick. And it was good to him this time around as well, for they win it with Native Trail, who was 7-2. It was Point Lonsdale who made the market, though, for Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore, 8-13. Ebro River, 13-2, and it was 8-1. And bigger the rest. 7 furlongs for this Group 1. And I think we have seen a top-class racehorse in Native Trail. He remains unbeaten after this success, but this was a big step up on anything that he's done before. Point Lonsdale, who's down on the inside there in second behind Ebro River, is highly thought of, I believe, by the Aidan O'Brien team, but he's well and truly put in his place by the Godolphin horse. Here he is, just a little bit keen early on, but William Buick soon gets him settled. The runner-up's just in front of him, and the strong travelling Ebro River, who seems to be getting better and better with each run, has run well to be third, but he has just come up against a monster of a 2-year-old, the best we have seen so far, and he's a little bit green still. Look at Buick there. He's just at him. He's just niggling away on him a little bit. You can see his head's just coming up a little, and he's just off the bridle, the odd stride, then he comes back and comes good again, then he's off the bridle again. He's just still green, this horse, on his 3rd career start. But watch the way in the closing stages how he clears away from his rivals. And he was strongest in the last 50 yards when he was putting more and more distance between himself and the rest. He is a very good racehorse, make no mistake, and is deservedly favourite for the 2,000 guineas now. What about his final time? Well, there it is. It's 126.27 over 7 furlongs, and that compared to Discoveries over the same trip, 127.1 Discoveries. So there we have it. Much quicker time from this horse, and now he's beginning to pick up. Ebro River's starting to get tired. There's a chance he might be a sprinter going forward. Now look at this horse on the outside. He's picking up in tremendous style, this Son of Oasis Dream, and he's clearing right away from a horse who's highly thought of, from a very useful sort in Ebro River, and he's really strong at the line. You've got to be impressed with what you saw here from him. I still think he's green, but he'll be good at a mile, this fellow. Whether he wants much further than that, given his pedigree, is open to debate. But what we do know is that he's a very good 2-year-old, and he's going to take a good deal of beating if he turns up for the Dewhurst to Newmarket. Let's sum this up then. Well, we've seen a very impressive 2-year-old. I think the best colt we have seen this season, in my opinion. His favourite for the Guineas, I think that's about right, isn't it? He should be on the back of that success. Reported to be heading to the Dewhurst. He'll have learnt a lot from this run. You saw that he was a little bit green early on. He's still running around under pressure as well. Different test, of course, on the Rolling Mile, having to go into the dip and out of that, but he's a classy colt. He should be able to handle it. As highlighted, quicker than the Moyglare, quicker than Discoveries, and quite simply, he's a better 2-year-old. Now, what about his pedigree? I touched on the fact that he's by Oasis Dream, and he's out of an observatory mare. So he's got quite a fast pedigree. Oasis Dreams tend to not want to go more than a mile, really. Observatory was a miler as well. I think a mile just about will be his limit ultimately. But fast ground, I think being by Oasis Dream might always be important as well. What about Charlie Appleby this season? Well, you've got to hand it to him. He is one of the best trainers in the world, full stop. His strike rate is 30% in 2021. You won't find a better strike rate than that just about anywhere in the world. And that strike rate is not in moderate races. That's in good races. That's sensational training from Charlie Appleby. Time now here on The Verdict to have a look at the Coma Group International Irish St Leger. Group 1, 1 3/4, Search for a Song, 100 to 30 favourite ahead of Sunny Boy Liston, 4-1, Twilight Payment, 9-2, 6-1 Baron Samdi, 10s and bigger are the rest. And well, it was Sunny Boy Liston who wins for Johnny Murtagh. We're going to take this from just around about 4 out. Here he is, yellow colours, big white face, and he'll beat Twilight Payment into second place. Baron Samdi rounded out third. The first thing to note about this was that it was really strongly run. It was a war of attrition, and it produced a very good final time. It was very fast indeed, 3 minutes 2.05, and the standard is 3 minutes 2, so only just over standard. One of the best times of the day from Sunny Boy Liston. Now, he'd won the Ebor prior to this at York, and he won that in a very fast time as well. A race that produced a big time form speed figure of 115. That raw figure entitled him to have a good chance in Patton Company, and he is duly obliged. But what's so impressive about this is that he's been able to back up after the Ebor. He had such a hard race there. It was a tough war in the Ebor. He got up late there, and he's done exactly the same here to beat Twilight Payment. And beating that horse gives the form a solid look. So he must be a very tough horse, Sunny Boy Liston, to be able to do this. It was incredibly strongly run. There was no hiding place for any horse out there, and he has just stayed on really strongly all the way to the line. And he had to go and catch Twilight Payment because he had 3 or 4 lengths advantage turning for home, and he's gone and caught him, and then he has seen it out very strongly. There's talk of the Melbourne Cup for him, but after the Ebor, but they decided to come here. What a great decision that was from Johnny Murtagh. A brilliant Group 1 success for him. So what did we have? We had a very strongly run race, and it produced a really good final time, just 0.05 above standard on quick ground to the Curragh on Sunday. It was really an attritional test. It was a proper staying race, this. There was no hiding place, and lots of horses cried enough a long way out. Not Sunny Boy Liston, though. He had a tough race, didn't he? A really tough race, as he had when he won the Ebor. To back up here was an amazing effort, and this is up in grade as well, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with him now. You'd think that maybe a break, the pause that refreshes before something later on in the autumn, but he's clearly a very tough individual. Johnny Murtagh, what a trainer he's becoming. He really is going from strength to strength as a trainer. He's got the ammunition now to cut it in Grade 1 company, and this will be a very, very important success for him and his team. Well done to Ben Cohen. First thing to say is Johnny Murtagh kept faith with him. He rides for Johnny all the time, and Johnny let him keep the ride on this horse in this big Group 1. And he's clearly well liked by his fellow professionals who welcomed him back into the winners' enclosure. They were there to applaud him back in. The jockeys left the weighing room and they came to see him into the winners' enclosure. A nice touch after the Irish St Leger. And overall, was it a weak race? Did he just get away with it, coming from handicap company to Group 1 level? I don't think he did. I think it was a good race for a mile and 3/4 race, and he beat Twilight Payment, who's a very solid operator with a good record at the Curragh. So I think it was a pretty solid form. I think it was a tremendous effort from Sonny Boy Liston. Make no mistake, Johnny Murtagh has got the magic touch. Well, we've had a look at some top-class action on Irish Champions Weekend. Let's look at a top-class ride, in my opinion, now. At Epsom, in the middle of the week, it was Tom Marquand winning on a horse called Curtis on the 9th of September, over a mile and 113 yards this race. He was the 4-5 favourite. He was looking to complete a hat-trick. Top-class Angel was 9-2. It was 10-1 and bigger the rest. So we need to put this ride in some sort of context as I send them on their way. It was a narrow track at Epsom. It was a day when the rail was out. He's widest of all, Curtis. Keep an eye on Marquand there in the white colours. So the rail was out. So it became apparent during the day that it was best to try and get across to the stand side. So what Marquand is determined to do, he doesn't want to get cover. He wants to sit wide because he wants to be first across to that stand's rail. Now, all meeting, they'd been edging across. They hadn't been quite getting to the rail, but he realised that that's the place you wanted to be, and he was determined to get across there. He could have looked to dive in here from his draw and get a bit of cover and hide away, but no, he wanted to stay wide because he was determined to be the first across to that rail. Now, what was this race like? Well, the last 3 furlongs, 34.93, so the ground wasn't that bad. It was definitely good ground, and certainly no worse than that. And we often think the stand side rail at Epsom is only good when the ground is soft. That's where you want to be when it's soft, because it cambers down. Well, I think it's the place that you want to be if you can get there cheaply, i.e. it's not too far to go. When the track's at its full width, it's too far to go to get across there. For example, on Derby Day. But look how far out it is, the rail there. It's out a long way. And Marquand now is in position A to get across and be first to the rail. And now he asks his horse to pick up, and he's determined to hold the line and get to the rail. Now he knows that his plan has worked. Sit wide, sit on the outside, don't worry about giving away ground, because he wants to be the first across, and he got there and he achieved exactly what he wanted, and he made sure that he stayed on the rail. Now you could counter what I'm saying with he was on the odds-on favourite, he was on the best horse in the race, and he's won cosily and completed the hat-trick, and there'll be more to come from him, and he'd have won wherever he went. Not sure he would have done. I think he wanted to be on the rail, and it was the way he sat to the outside. He had a plan, he was determined to get to that rail, and he achieved his objective, and he did it very smoothly as well. Well done to Tom Marquand. I think he's riding brilliantly this season. That's just another example of him thinking about what he's doing out there. So what did we see? Well, we saw an evenly run race. The finishing speed percentage 104.06. It didn't go mad, so he sat in the right place. He sat nice and handy, and then angled across and was the first to the rail. Well done to Tom Marquand. It was very good stuff from him. He's riding at the top of his game, and it was tactically really good. Even though he was on the odds-on favourite, there's plenty of odds-on favourites that get beaten through moderate rides. This was certainly not a moderate ride. Very good stuff. Winner's good. Yeah, he's improving, I think. Completes a hat-trick now. Might be able to cut it in slightly better company after this. He'll probably have to step up in grade now, but I think there is more to come. There's a stand-side advantage at Epsom, there certainly was, and I think that is applied when the rail is out. It's not just, for me, a soft ground phenomenon. Yes, when it's soft, the top side is the best place to be because the water goes down the hill and you want to be on the top side. But if you can get across there on good ground, I think it can confer an advantage as well, as it did there with Curtis, and Tom Marquand knew all about it. Good ride from him then. We saw some great stuff this weekend on Irish Champions Weekend, which I think really works divided between the two tracks. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.